Well, this is the first video on my channel, The Faith I Need. And I confess that I have already recorded it several times. I wrote a script, I recorded it, and now, since this is the first video, I am going to introduce myself. My name is Sylvania, I am 50 years old, and the faith I need has been a challenge for me. Living this faith has truly been a challenge. I decided to start this channel so I could talk about faith and share my experiences. I believe that many of the adversities I face come from the fact that we make plans. We imagine life will happen in a certain way, and then things happen differently. I believe that sharing these experiences, my own experiences, can help and add something to the lives of other people who may be going through the same things. People who may also have the same expectations. In the end, I am not alone. And anyone going through something similar should not feel alone either. I want you to know that I am here, living these same challenges at 50 years old. And it is not only about being 50. It is about the many expectations we create. Sometimes we feel so frustrated because of certain situations. We imagine that by the age of 50, life will be settled. We imagine that by 50, we will be successful, peaceful, and stable. We imagine this in every area, financially, emotionally, and in every other aspect of life. There have been many challenges up to this point, and today I am facing one of the greatest challenges of my life. So I believe that what I truly need right now is a lot of faith. I originally had the idea of launching this channel with the intention of talking about childhood trauma, about the things that can hold us back, the things that keep our lives from moving forward, and the things that prevent breakthroughs from happening. And along the way, we begin to discover why things do not break through. We begin to understand why things did not happen the way we imagined. Then, when we come face to face with the reality of what is happening, everything starts to make sense. I will explain so you can understand. When I was 13 years old, I left my mother's house and went to live with my brother because he needed help with his children. So I moved in with him. During that time, I lived there for 12 months. I had never been away from my mother before. I had never left her. Nothing like that had ever happened. I was still very attached to her, and we had a very strong connection. But after that separation, after spending that time in another place, far away from home, I began to feel rejected. I went to live in Vitória. For those who do not know, I am Brazilian. I live in Brazil, and Vitória is in another state. I am from the state of Rio de Janeiro. It is about an 8-hour trip from Rio de Janeiro to Vitória. Actually, I live in the state of Rio de Janeiro, about 2 hours from the city of Rio de Janeiro, the capital. So it was very far away. It was a long journey. I stayed there for 12 months. I studied at a school there and lived that whole experience. The time I spent there itself was not painful. What became painful was what happened afterward, because I believe my mother had abandoned me. That brought me a very deep feeling of rejection. Over the years, I continued living with that feeling. I was 13 when I went there, and I was 14 when I came back. I was entering adolescence. And after I came to believe that my mother had rejected me, that feeling of rejection began to affect me deeply. It took me a long time to discover what my real problem was. But I became very aggressive. Very aggressive. And I had problems with my mother. I had always been very close to her, but because of that feeling, we grew distant. I was very close to my father, but with my mother, there was distance because of that wound. I started having serious problems. I became a very superficial person, an aggressive person. Then I grew older, had my first relationship, and in that relationship, I was not successful. I could not love. I could not choose to love. At that time, I did not know that love is a decision. I had not decided to love someone, and that caused many problems. In that relationship, I could not sustain it, even though we stayed together for about 5 years. It was a long journey marked by many mistakes, poor choices, and a wrong interpretation of the facts of my life. In all that anger and rebellion, I hurt my mother, and I was also hurt. It was only when I was in my 20s, around 26 years old, that I was able to understand that I had gone through rejection. I had carried that feeling with me. Everything that kept me from having a deep relationship, everything that kept me from living a happier life, all that bitterness came from what I had experienced in that childhood situation. And I confess, it was a process. I already knew Jesus, and that is why I talk about faith. The name of this channel is about faith because I already knew Jesus. I had already experienced things with God, but then I came face to face with my whole story, with situations that made me try to know myself and understand myself. I wanted to understand why all those things were happening, why I carried so much anger, why I could not live a happy relationship, and why I would not allow myself to love. I had decided that I would never love anyone again because my reference of love, my mother, had abandoned me. But the truth is, she had asked me if I wanted to go to Victoria, and I said I wanted to go. I simply did not know what it meant to be far away from her. So I became angry because I thought she had sent me there. In my mind, I believed she had sent me away to get rid of me. And when we are children or preteens and then teenagers, we go through a lot of emotional confusion. We cannot really evaluate things clearly, with the integrity of the facts as they truly are, because I was so aggressive. My mother also seemed to have a stronger preference for my sister, and I thought that was absurd. I was not a perfect person. I was not the perfect daughter. But it was also not my place to expect her to behave exactly the way I wanted. I cannot control people. I cannot demand that they give me exactly what I expect from them. My mother is a very loving person. I know that what she did or did not do was not done to harm me. But emotionally, all of that triggered a very painful experience in me. I became a very superficial person. I did not want to get involved. I did not want to love people. I did not want to love because I did not want to be hurt again. I carried that difficulty for many years, and now I am 50 years old, and I never got married. I was always very lonely. Then I left my city and moved to the capital, Rio de Janeiro, which is about 2 hours from the city where I used to live and where I am living again today. Volta Redonda, all of that was very difficult for me. Life went on, I grew, I matured, and I began to understand that whole process. And throughout that process, with faith, I was able to overcome all of it. I asked God to heal me, to heal my soul, to heal me from within. But even asking God to heal me was very difficult, because I could not develop a relationship with God. Since I had decided that I did not want to love, and loving God, loving others, loving God above all things, the Bible is a reference of love. The sacrifice of Jesus for us is a reference of love. So everything involves loving. Everything involves love. Everything involves surrender. In faith, there is also surrender. We deny ourselves out of love for Christ to follow his principles and obey his word. It is a whole process, and my life was like that. It was a process, but a painful one. It was not easy. And because of all that, I did not get married. I did not have children. I had a pregnancy, but that pregnancy ended in loss. Throughout this whole process, I was able to reach 50 years old and understand that I had been healed when I discovered that there was a feeling of rejection inside me. And before I understood that I was emotionally wounded, it took me 8 years to understand what was happening to me. I had behaviors I did not want to have. I wanted to be gentle. I did not want to be bitter. I wanted to be kind. I did not want to be harsh, but I was very harsh. I was rude to people. I was not very understanding. And it took me 8 years to understand that it was a feeling of rejection that had triggered all that aggressiveness in me and made me feel that way. I did not feel incapable. I did not struggle with low self-esteem. That was not the issue. But I did feel that I did not want to get involved. I did not want to love, so my friendships were superficial. And when people realized that superficiality, when they understood that I could not give more because you cannot give what you do not have, they walked away. So I was always alone. And I learned how to live with that solitude. I was not a person with many friends, and time kept passing. Through all of this, at 50 years old, I was able to understand that I went through a process, and I was able to become completely healed through the sufficiency of God. He dealt with my character. He dealt with my temperament. I was a very restless person, a very angry person. I was always irritated. I became angry very easily, and I had many difficulties. I did not have difficulty forgiving, but I did have difficulty living with people and accepting them as they were. I thought people had to act according to what I believed was right. I judged a lot. I thought they had to be the way I wanted them to be, and that they had to do things the way I believed they should be done. And that is not a good thing. Over time, you begin to discover what makes it difficult for you to live with other people. Because when you are merciful, kind, loving, gentle, and gracious, you are able to give of yourself. You are able to be understanding. You are able to be loving. You are able to have discernment about situations and live well with people. And I had a lot of difficulty with that. Then I reached that healing, that fullness with God in my relationship with the Lord. And when I saw myself walking toward improvement, when I saw that I was well with God, that I could speak about this faith, that I could speak about the love of God because of the many experiences I have had with Him and the many miracles I have lived, I felt ready. And I invite you to follow this channel so you can learn more about these miracles, so I can share more of them with you, and so your faith may grow. And in the middle of all of this, I have just been diagnosed with cancer. I had a mammogram and 3 lumps were detected. There are 3 lumps in my left breast. Then a biopsy was done, and the report showed that 2 of the lumps are malignant and 1 is benign. And I see how much I need faith. I see how much I need the manifestation of this faith. I see how much I need God to give me courage to fight for my life, courage to fight for what I believe in, and courage to believe in the miracles of God. I confess that on the day I received the biopsy result, when it was confirmed, when I read that it was truly real, that it was malignant and that I had cancer, I did not cry. I did not cry because of this faith. I believe in God so deeply. My trust in God is so great. I believe that He can heal me. I believe this is not the end. I believe He loves me. I believe I am a beloved daughter of God, and I believe that in the middle of all this, there is a purpose, and He will fulfill His purpose in my life. That is why I did not cry. My faith, my trust in the power of God, and all the experiences I have already lived, all these stories of faith, of seeing miracles and living miracles, kept me standing. I have already seen the miracle of money appearing in my bank account so I could pay for college when I was studying. I have already seen the miracle of being unemployed and God showing me in dreams that I would be hired. I woke up, asked God where that job was, went to a place and was hired. I have lived many things like this, many miracles, and I will share them here throughout this journey of faith. And I was not shaken. Not for a single moment was I shaken or emotionally broken. My trust remained firm in the Lord, and it continues to remain firm in the Lord. And I believe in my victory. So I do not know what you may be going through today. Maybe you are facing a circumstance that is not favorable to you. Maybe you are going through a divorce. We know that a divorce, a separation, is something painful, especially if you still love the person. There was a life together. There was a bond. There was a marriage. There was a soul tie. And sometimes we have a soul tie with another person, even when we have not lived with them for very long. But some things mark us. They wound us. They leave us discouraged and emotionally shaken. And I can tell you that when we know who we are in God, when we have faith in the Lord, when we believe, and when we keep building that faith, because faith is built daily through experiences, we begin to learn how to hear God. We begin to learn how to relate to Him. You begin to understand what He says, what you say, and you begin to discern all things. It is interesting because I really wanted to start this channel, but I could not do it. I recorded several videos, but I could not move forward. I could not stand in front of the camera and expose myself. Because in a certain way, that is what we are doing. We are exposing ourselves. I could not take that first step, even though I really wanted to begin. Then I watched a movie that tells the story of a homeless man and how he comes out of that condition. The movie is called Conversations with God. I watched that movie, and in the story, this man tells how he went through that season of his life. He became someone who shared the gospel. He became a speaker. He had an experience with God, wrote a book, and began giving talks. People started buying his book, and he began speaking about the experience he had with God, about what it means to speak and what it means to listen. I watched that movie yesterday. When it ended, I said to myself, I am going to make it. I am going to have courage. I am going to start my channel. The faith I need. An intelligent faith. A faith that reflects a relationship. A relationship is not built through a monologue. It is built through dialogue. It is built where you speak and you listen, and God speaks to us. God speaks to me a lot through prophecy. God speaks to me a lot through His Word, through the Bible. God speaks to me a lot through dreams. So I can tell you that I have lived many experiences with Him. Maybe you don't even know what prophecy means, but the Bible speaks about the prophets. So it has been an experience. I have lived many experiences. But right now, as I said, I need faith. And I know that nothing is too difficult for God. And now I am going to talk about a word that God gave me. I received the cancer diagnosis and went to talk to God. I said, God, but why? God, how is this? What is the purpose? And when I went to talk to God about this matter, He spoke to me through the book of 2 Kings chapter 7. In 2 Kings chapter 7, the Bible talks about a city called Samaria. This city was under siege, and the people had nothing to eat. They were going through an extreme famine. To help you understand, people were eating dove's dung. They were buying dove's dung for 5 shekels of silver just to eat. That is how severe the famine was. There were 2 women arguing and fighting, and the king passed near the walls and asked what was happening. They were arguing because one of them had eaten her own son. The 2 women had agreed to eat their sons. One of them ate her son, And the next day, when it was time to eat the other woman's son, that woman refused to hand over her child so they could cook and eat him. That is how severe the famine was, and it was in this context that God gave me this word. The prophet Elisha goes to the king and delivers a word to him within that situation. He says that at that same time the following day, in other words, within 24 hours, that entire scenario would change. Those people would be buying barley, buying food. Within 24 hours, that whole situation would be transformed. And there was an officer who was with the king, holding onto his arm. This officer said that even if windows were opened in heaven, such a thing would be impossible. Then the prophet Elisha looks at him and says, "You will see it, but you will not eat of it." In other words, he would see everyone experiencing that miracle, everyone receiving the miracle, but he would not partake of it, because he did not believe. And in this account, the Bible says that God himself caused the army that was surrounding Samaria to hear sounds of war. They heard noises that God made them hear. They thought Israel had hired kings and nations to join forces against them in order to destroy and annihilate them. So they fled from there so quickly, and in such desperation because of what they had heard, that they left garments, clothing, and belongings along the way. And there were 4 lepers at the entrance of the city. They said, "Well, we are going to die of hunger here at the gate, or we can enter the city. Maybe they will give us food, or maybe they will kill us. Either way, we are going to die." So they decided to go in. And when they entered, the city was empty. They took the spoils, the silver, and everything they found, including garments, because the Bible says there were also clothes there. And they ate until they were satisfied. They ate abundantly. After they had eaten and were satisfied, they decided to inform the king that the city was empty and that the people could go there to eat. And when the people came, they came rushing, desperate to enter the city and get food. That crowd ended up trampling the king's officer, and the word that the prophet had spoken was fulfilled. That man would see it, but he would not eat of it. He died because he was trampled by the people who were desperate to enter the city. So, I was able to receive that word for myself and understand that there was a situation. There was a complete turnaround, and God changed that scenario. And I believe that this is what God is going to do in my life. I am living through a situation, a circumstance, but this is not the end. It is not over. It is not the end. I am trusting in my miracle. God changed the circumstance there in Samaria, so I believe He will change the circumstance I am living through today. And that is it. I hope you enjoy this channel. If you like topics like this, if you are a person of faith, if you want to strengthen your relationship with God, you are welcome to this channel. This is what this channel is for. I will bring testimonies and experiences of faith. I will talk about what it means to believe, to trust, and to live the miracle. I have lived miracles many times. I remember one of the miracles I experienced in 2013. I was in college studying in Rio de Janeiro, and I saw money materialize in my bank account. I did not have money to pay for college, and the money appeared in my account. Because if there is one thing you know for sure, it is when you do not have money. You know you do not have it. And there, the money appeared. On my bank statement, there is a record that has never disappeared. From 2003 until today, it says, undetermined deposit. So I trust, I say it again, I do not know what you are going through, but trust, believe. Nothing is too difficult for God. It is not impossible. He can move the miracle for you. He is faithful, and I ask you to follow me. One of the purposes of this video is also to be able to monetize this channel, to generate extra income through it, and at the same time, to encourage you. Sometimes you may also have the desire to start a channel, but you do not begin because you feel shy, because you do not want to expose yourself, because you do not want to speak. So, think about this. The first video may not be the best, but with time, you will practice and you will improve. So that is it. I thank you for staying here until the end. I ask you to comment below if you enjoy this kind of channel. If you are a woman of faith, if you trust, if you believe, we need to believe in ourselves, believe in life, and believe in God, who is the Almighty One, the one who can move all things. And you will also be able to share, follow along, and experience a little of what I am living through in this moment. In this season of my life, I will not say that this is the worst season of my life. It is a season of my life and it will pass, and I will have other seasons too, perhaps as challenging as this one, so that I may grow through my experiences, grow in my relationship with God, grow in trust, and have even more to share about miracles, and this will be another miracle that will become part of my story.